I'd like to dive in a little deeper to the sort of regulatory legal issues, specifically surrounding live music venues. At least that's what this organization knows best, but I know that a lot of these same issues apply to others in the cultural community and even other businesses outside of arts and culture. So if you could bear with me, I wanted to sort of explain what it's like to try to start a music venue. Like, I've been through this where I've set out to be like, okay, I'm going to start a music venue legally. I've heard that venues get in trouble sometimes, so let's read the laws and let's figure out what are all the I's we have to dot and all the T's we have to cross so that we can do this the proper way. So you go on the Vancouver website and you find that you need to figure out where your venue is going to be allowed. So you learn quickly that that is governed by the Zoning and Development Bylaw. So the way the Zoning and Development Bylaw works is there's these different usages listed. I apologize for those who can't see. We are projecting some excerpts from local bylaws up here on the screen. You're welcome to move forward. So this section of the Zoning and Development Bylaw is the definitions, which lists different types of businesses, basically, or usages of buildings that can exist in Vancouver. And so here we are as a venue trying to figure out who am I, basically? Well, you look through, the first one I came across was Artist Studio Class B, which means the use of the premises for the production of dance or live music involving electronically amplified sound. Well, that sounds like a music venue, but artist studio, that sounds more like a rehearsal type of space, so I don't know. You keep going through. Club, well, the use of a premises by a non-profit society, association, or corporation organized solely for the promotion of some common object. Well, that could be anything, really. We're organizing around the promotion of the common object of live music, so maybe we're a club. Or maybe we're actually a community center for the music community. Well, look, there's no definition at all next to that term. And then you find hall. Well, maybe we're running a hall here. Maybe that's what we're talking about. Again, there's this gigantic white blank space in the law next to the word hall. Same with museum. Maybe, I know they have concerts at museums sometimes. Maybe we're talking about a museum. Again, big blank space. Stadium Arena, again, they have concerts there. Big blank space. Theater, big blank space. How do we know who we are? So, I mean, you call city staff, you meet with city staff, and they'll tell you, different people will tell you different answers. They won't know, it's impossible. You look a little further, you find that the term hen is very clearly defined. A hen means a domesticated female chicken that is at least 4 months old. Well, at least the hens are secure. We won't have inspectors come around shutting them down, because that's clearly defined. There's all kinds of things in here. So then you turn to the business license bylaw to find out, well, what kind of business license will I need? And again, there's these list of different terms. So you would expect it might be the same, corresponding terms from the last bylaw, but it's actually a whole different set of terminology. You have arts and culture indoor events, which only allows you to have 2 concerts a month. You have, there's all kinds of things. Yeah, I think it was increased to 3, but it wasn't updated on the bylaw, apparently. Well, cat is well-defined, that's good. Again, club, this one actually was one of the ones that's common, the definition is common between both bylaws. Dance hall, well, that didn't even exist in the other bylaw, but in this bylaw, dance hall means any building, room, or place where public or private dances are held or permitted for hire or profit. Well, maybe we're a dance hall, but then is a dance hall permitted in a club? Is a dance hall permitted in a theater? Well, we don't know because those terms weren't defined. Discotheque teenage, well, that's, again, a new piece of terminology. Right, look right under that, there's dog. That's convenient. I don't know what happened there with the screen. Anyway, I think you get what I'm saying here, that the bylaws that exist, they're a mess. I mean, you have undefined terms, you have inconsistent terms. Look, junk. Thanks for defining the word junk for me. I really needed that. The question that I'd like to eventually get to here, and I apologize for taking so long to ask this, why do you think these bylaws are the way they are, and what, if anything, would you do to change them if you were elected? So I can't remember which way did we go last time. We went this way, so we'll start at the far end this time.
Why are the bylaws the way they are? Maybe because my dad made the bylaws, I don't know, or his dad.
Or my mom.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of bylaws that affect all sorts of businesses that are just out of date, that don't represent 2014. Our liquor laws in many ways represent British Columbia in 1905, not 2014. So there are a lot of things that we need to go back into the books and really see how these laws actually apply to 2014, 2015, 2020. There's that component, and I also think that maybe when we take a look at bylaws that affect arts and culture, that we're actually bringing members of the arts and culture community into bylaw revision that can say, you know what, that's not going to work, or maybe you should consider this. And it's, I think, an inclusionary process, more so than it probably ever has been.
Nick's right. A lot of them are outdated. They're from our grandfather's grandfather's grandfather. And they were brought in at the time that they were needed, and they've just stayed on the books, like a lot of red tape that exists at City Hall. And we hope that we will be able to cut a lot of the red tape as we move forward. But the most important thing is getting the community involved when you're doing it, as opposed to doing it and then giving it to the community, which doesn't work, because you've never defined it properly if you are not part of that profession. So a whole lot of work needs to be done. We're all committed to doing it. I know the NPA has a number of issues about red tape at the City Hall and being able to cut it, but certainly I know every single councillor sort of puts their head down on the desk at some point and goes, okay, Vancouver Charter, here we go, and let's see if we can get an amendment to something that's outdated and doesn't work anymore. Thank you.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with any of that. The prospect of massive reform to get strange laws that were built for circumstances that maybe even arose once that somebody was upset with and managed to get a law that is a big prospect. But one thing we might look at is, you know, when you're putting on a music event, let's talk about music in particular, there are already laws for nuisance, there are already standards for building safety, there are already laws for noise. And then why exactly do we have laws specifically about music? It's a really interesting prospect, though, to say, let's not regulate music, let's regulate it with the existing bylaws. I think that's the way to go.
Well, of course, you know, a lot of this stuff is written by lawyers because there are legal liability issues when any kind of, you know, if the city did not do this due diligence, there would be legal liability issues. And that's why a lot of, you know, that's why we have DIY culture, because nobody wants to jump through these hoops. That's why I lived in a secret bed that was built into a drafting table that would fold up in case the inspectors showed up. But you know, one of the things that we do see, and I do work as a graphic designer, and I have, most of my clients are small businesses, and I hear this time and time again from my clients, is red tape stymies their opening of their business. So one of the immediate tools that we'd like to employ is what's called a field permit review. And a field permit review, basically, I have some friends who were opening a business and they got stymied because they put in the wrong kind of exit sign. It didn't come into code until 2015. They were closed for a month. No business, employees to pay, the whole shebang, and they had to wait for the electrical guy to come in. They could have had a field permit review, a guy comes in, signs off on it right away instead of having to wait for a 1-month appointment.
Thanks, and thank you for that. I actually want to borrow that because that's a great example of the problem. The first thing I noticed was the logo on the front of that is the really old logo for the city, and that kind of tells you the whole thing right there. So that when our staff started looking at the performance space review, this is one of 3 pages of the things that we had to look at in terms of bylaws and licensing in order to address this, what seems like a relatively simple question. So we did meet a couple of times with the Vancouver Live Assembly Network, VLAN, and Ryan's part of that, and I appreciate their input. And we've taken many of their suggestions, and we've made some temporary changes, such as the 3 times a month and 1 license for multiple events. But we need to do more, and that's why in our platform it specifically says, expedite the review and streamline of bylaws that govern performance venue spaces by June 1st, 2015 to reduce unnecessary burdens for cultural enterprises. We recognize the problem. It's been taking too long to fix it, so we've actually put a deadline for ourselves in it.
Well, if elected, I can't do anything to change any of that, because I'm only going for Parks Board. You've heard that once before. But, you know, when I look at this, I have a background in computer programming, and I'm just gonna say, you know, why don't you guys just hire a bunch of computer programmers and try to figure out doing some fuzzy logic, and I'm sure you can come up with some flow chart as to what fits where and what doesn't fit, and then just, you know, put it in. Work on some communication and write it in. I mean, most of the times when you look at these things, they're done by lawyers and it's black and white. I think there needs to be some color added to some of the ways we do our laws and some parameters around that. I know there's risk management issues. I've worked on the risk management. But anyways, thank you.